Have you ever wondered why you came into the world exactly in that month? Why not a little before or after? What if I told you that, for Carl Jung, your birth carries a message from the soul, a silent code that indicates the kind of path you came to walk? It may seem like just a date on the calendar, but Jung believed that there is a deep symbolism in everything that seems casual. The month of your birth can reveal more about you than you realize. Your challenges, your hidden strengths, your relationships, what attracts you, and even what hurts you the most, all of these can be linked to the exact time your soul chose to arrive here. This video is an invitation to look beyond the obvious, listen to what your soul already knows, and perhaps, for the first time, understand why you are exactly the way you are. Get ready, because when Jung leads us through this inner labyrinth, what seems ordinary reveals something extraordinary. His mission, his essence, his calling. Born in January, they carry a powerful archetypal energy, that of the beginning. But it's not just any beginning. It is the one that requires courage, resilience, and patience. Carl Jung would say that souls who have chosen to be born this month bring with them the impulse to build solid structures, not only for themselves, but for others. They are beings who, even without realizing it, live as bridges between the past and the future. January represents the crossing between what has already been and what is to come. It's a portal. And being born in this time means, spiritually, being someone who has the mission to take the first step, even if there is still no visible road. These people often face deep loneliness early in life, as if something in them already knew that being born first requires waiting for others. There is a kind of silent wisdom in those born in January. Even young people often feel that they don't fully belong to the lightness of childhood. The soul already seems mature. And this can be painful because it requires growing ahead of time. But it is precisely this early maturity that causes these individuals to develop an invisible strength, a leadership that does not need to be told. Jung would call this early individuation. Life calls these souls to move away from the masses, to question rules, to build a self that is not a reflection of others. Therefore, many of those born in January go through phases of silence, retraction, and intense reflection. Sometimes mistaken for coldness, these pauses are actually times when the soul is working out its next move. Another profound aspect of this date is the relationship with responsibility. January carries the archetype of Saturn, the wise old man, the Lord of Time. This means that these people tend to attract situations where they need to become adults quickly. They are the ones who take care of everyone, who keep everything standing up, until, one day, they realize that they were never really cared for. And this moment is decisive. When someone born in January finally gives themselves the right to be vulnerable, to ask for help, to fail without guilt, something very important is revealed. True leadership is born of humility. And then yes, these souls become what they came to be, silent guides of wisdom that cannot be learned from books. The spiritual call of the month of January is to open paths, to transform the fear of the unknown into action, to transform the weight of responsibility into lucid maturity. But for that, you need to put aside the pride of always having everything under control and learn to trust. Jung would say that the central symbol of these souls is the mountain, solitary, firm, elevated, but also silent, exposed to the wind, with roots that no one sees. Those born in January are here to show that the journey can be lonely, but it is this loneliness that reveals one's own soul. February is the shortest month on the calendar. It seems small, discreet, almost shy. But behind this simplicity there is something very symbolic. The month of February defies logic. It does not follow the traditional structure of the other months. And this, in Carl Jung's view, is already a powerful clue to understand the soul of those born in this period. Jung believed that symbols speak to us more than words. And the symbol of February is that of difference. Those who are born in this month carry within them a seed of originality, and often, they don't even know it at the beginning of life. They are souls who have not come to repeat patterns. They came to question, to break, to reinvent. This does not mean gratuitous rebellion. It's an internal, almost silent impulse that starts early, a feeling of not fitting in, of seeing the world differently, of not understanding why things have to be this way. Many born in February report that, since they were little, They felt as if they lived in another time or in another frequency. And that's not madness, it's sensitivity. It is a vision beyond the ordinary. It is the soul trying to remember who it really is before it is molded by the demands of the world. Jung called this the transcendent function, a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, between the visible and the invisible. And those born in February have this bridge within them. Therefore, these people often have intense creative gifts. They don't just imagine, they dream of new realities. And they are often seen as eccentric, weird, or with their heads in the moon world. But in fact, they are just listening to a song that most people still can't listen to. The challenge for these souls is to learn to trust this intuition, because the world often tries to push them into molds that suffocate. And when this happens, anguish arises. A sadness that seems to have no cause. An apathy, a feeling of displacement. Jung said that when we deny our deep nature, the unconscious begins to scream. And this cry often manifests itself as empty. But when the February-born person allows himself to live his truth, even if it seems strange to others, something magical happens. Life begins to conspire in favor. The improbable becomes possible. What is different becomes beauty. And then the soul blossoms. Another striking feature is the connection with the collective. Despite seeming lonely, many of these individuals have a deep sensitivity to human, social, or spiritual causes. They feel the pain of the world. And they often carry the feeling that they have a greater mission, even without knowing what it is. The key is in authenticity. The more these souls free themselves from the need to please, to appear normal, the more their mission is revealed. They came to remind the world that there is another way to live. Lighter, more creative, more true. The archetypal symbol of February is that of the visionary. The one who sees what does not yet exist. The one who plants seeds in the invisible. The one who accepts being misunderstood because he trusts what he feels. It is a silent but revolutionary courage. Jung said that individuation is a solitary but essential process. And those born in February are called to walk this path early. Not to isolate yourself, but to discover what's unique about you, and then share it with the world. There is also a strong connection with time in these souls. As if they had come from another century, or as if they were always a little ahead. This can generate anxiety, because they often notice things that others do not yet see. But it is also a gift, because it allows them to act as beacons, illuminating new paths, even in the midst of darkness. If you were born in February, you may have felt that your life does not follow the common script. Maybe you've questioned everything, even yourself. And perhaps he has learned, in pain, that he cannot pretend to be who he is not. But no, this is your strength. The world needs those who dare to think differently, of those who dream big, of those who see beauty in what has not yet been done. Your month carries this mission. And when you embrace that not as a burden, but as a calling, your life stops being just a string of days and becomes a revelation. March is the month when summer begins to say goodbye and autumn whispers its first signs. A time of transition, of lightness that begins to silence, of subtle change in the air. And so is the one who is born in this month, a being of transition between worlds. For Jung, this is no coincidence. It is a symbol. Souls who choose to come in March are deeply attached to feeling, not as weakness, but as a form of wisdom. These people do not live only with their eyes, but with their skin, with their chest, with silence. They feel before they understand. You can feel it before you see it. And for this reason, they often carry a sweet melancholy, as if they know that life is much more than it seems. Carl Jung talked about the collective unconscious, a deep field where all of humanity's emotions are stored. And those born in March, without knowing it, seem to have access to this field from an early age. It is common for these souls to be very empathetic. They feel the environment, absorb the pain of others, perceive the unsaid. That can be a gift, but also a burden. Because if they don't learn to protect themselves, they end up carrying more than what belongs to them. From childhood, they may seem fragile, too sensitive, lost in daydreams. But this fragility is only the veil of an old soul, which came with memories that cannot fit in words. Those born in March have a deep connection with the invisible. Many have vivid dreams, powerful intuitions, and an almost magical relationship with nature. They feel connected to the sea, to the sky, to art. And all of this can become shelter or prison. It depends on how this sensitivity is received. Jung said that the soul thirsts for expression, and when she doesn't find a voice, she gets sick. Therefore, emotional repression is especially dangerous for these people. If you were born in March, you've probably felt misunderstood. She has heard that she is very sensitive, that she takes everything seriously, that she needs to be stronger. But what if this sensitivity is precisely what the world needs most? What if your pain is not weakness, but a gateway to what is most sacred? March souls come with a delicate mission: to remind the world of the beauty that exists in emotion, of the depth that exists in what cannot be explained. They are poets even without writing, curators even without a degree, artists even without a stage, because they see beyond the form. And this is the essence of the Piscean archetype, one of the most spiritual and mysterious of the zodiac, directly associated with the dissolution of the ego, compassion, and the immersion in the whole. But there is also a warning: the soul of March can get lost in illusions. He can indulge in daydreaming, escape, idealizing people or situations. And this generates suffering. Jung warned of the danger of living only in the unconscious, without an anchor in reality. The way, then, is not to escape from the world, but to learn to be in it without losing oneself. The challenge of these souls is precisely to balance heaven and ground. Live the dream but with firm feet. To feel intensely, but to know where the other ends and the self begins. This requires practice, self-knowledge, presence. And that's where the real strength comes in, when sensitivity finds direction. The spiritual mission of March is reconnection. With your own heart, with the hearts of others, with something greater that sustains everything. These people are called to heal, with words, with presence, with art, with silence. They are living reminders that the human being is not only reason, it is not only action. It is also depth, tenderness, mystery. Many who were born in this month are attracted to spiritual paths, therapies, music, meditation. Not because they seek to escape, but because, deep down, they know that there is more. And they can't pretend they don't know. This constant search for meaning may seem like a restlessness, but it is, in fact, a calling. Jung was talking about the self, the deep center of the soul, which goes beyond the ego. March souls have a natural intuition of this self. They feel it even without knowing how to name it. And when they allow themselves to follow that calling, life changes. It starts to have a truer, more connected, fuller rhythm. If you were born in March, know that your gift is to feel, and that's no small feat. It is, perhaps, the rarest form of intelligence. You see what others ignore. You listen to what the world silences. And even when you don't understand everything, you already know. April is the month when nature awakens with force. The trees bloom, the world seems to breathe again. It is the rebirth of the fire of existence. And Jung believed that the soul that is born at this time carries exactly this spark, the flame of the beginning, the vital impulse that transforms the idea into action. Souls of April did not come to observe, they came to live. Intensely, gamely, with his heart in his hand. Those born in April carry within themselves a strength that often scares others. There is something burning in his eyes, an impatience to make it happen, an almost uncontrollable desire to break with what is stagnant. They are souls of movement, but not just any movement. Movement with purpose, with passion, with intensity. From an early age, these people tend to show a certain impetus. They can't stand to wait too long for what they want. They don't like to be trapped. And they are often called impulsive, hasty, explosive. But the truth is different. They feel the urgency of life. It's as if something inside them says all the time, you can't leave it for later. Jung said that the warrior archetype is part of the collective unconscious. And in April, this warrior awakens. Not a warrior who destroys, but one who opens the way. What a challenge! Who takes risks? Who is not content with a lukewarm life? And this causes many of these souls to collect falls, disappointments, impulses that went wrong. But also unlikely wins, real transformations, and a rare twinkle in the eye. If you were born in April, you may have already felt that you live everything at maximum intensity. When he loves, he dives. When it suffers, it burns. When he believes, he goes to the end. This may seem like overkill to others, but to you, it's just true. You didn't come to the surface. He came to dive. He came to set fire. And it is precisely this fire that moves his soul. Jung spoke of the importance of recognizing instincts as living parts of the psyche. Denying this vital impulse is what sickens the spirit. Therefore, those born in April need space to act, create, decide. When they are pruned, they become frustrated, sad, apathetic. The soul falls asleep. And nothing is more dangerous for these people than living without enthusiasm. On the other hand, the challenge of these souls is patience. Because the world doesn't always move at the same speed as your dreams. And many times it will be necessary to wait, to step back, to breathe before acting. This does not mean putting out the fire, but learning to light it at the right time. When this maturity arrives, the impulse becomes wisdom, and the warrior becomes a leader. Another important point is that the souls of April carry a beautiful, almost childlike innocence. They believe what they feel. They trust their own desires. And because of this, they can be easily hurt. Life sometimes seems too hard for those with an open heart. But this openness is precisely the key. Because where the majority protects itself, you surrender. And it is in surrender that the soul grows. Jung said that individuation only happens when the ego learns to dialogue with the unconscious. And those who are born in April live this dialogue in the body. It is as if instinct, desire, impulse were messages from the soul. When these signs are ignored, frustration arises. When they are listened to with wisdom, leadership is born. April's spiritual mission is to light up, awaken that which is dormant in others. Inspire, provoke, be a spark, but not to impose anything, but to remind the world of the strength that exists within each one. Your soul is a torch, not to illuminate everything by itself, but to light others. These people are often called upon to lead. Even when they don't want to, they end up being followed. Not because they are superior, but because they have courage. Courage to feel, to make mistakes, to start again. This is rare. And that is precisely why it is so necessary. If you were born in April, you may have gone through times when you felt like you were going too fast, wishing too much, believing too much. But what if this is not a mistake? What if this intensity is actually the sign of your soul saying, you came to live it all? So live. But learn to breathe between one battle and another. Learn that not every fight is yours. And that, sometimes, the greatest act of courage is to be silent. Not because you gave up, but because you understood that fire also needs air. May is a month of roots. In it, nature begins to show stability. The flowers blooming in April gain shape and consistency. It is the time when the initial impulse gives way to construction, to cultivation. And so is the soul of those who are born in this month, deep, firm, patient. Jung would say that these souls carry the archetype of the guardian of the earth, the one who sustains, who cares, who transforms chaos into peace. People born in May usually have a special connection with everything that is concrete, palpable, safe. Not because they are materialistic, but because they intuit that the soul also needs ground. They take pleasure in the little things. A good conversation, a sincere gesture, a touch of affection. They are like silent gardens, and whoever comes close feels it. These souls do not like to run. They like to feel every step. And this can be uncomfortable in a world that lives in a hurry. But their pace is not slow, it is wise. Jung said that the soul has its own time. And those born in May are called to respect this time, not to get lost in the anxiety of others, to build something true even if it takes time. That's why many of these people seem old, even when they're young. They have strong values, solid principles, and a quiet resistance that impresses. They don't give up easily, but they also don't give up immediately. They prefer to feel, observe, trust little by little. And when they do, it's for real. This loyalty is one of the strongest spiritual marks of May. It is as if these souls came into the world with the mission of teaching what presence is. In a time where everything is fast, shallow, and disposable, they show the beauty of staying. To care with constancy, to love with roots. However, this search for security can also become a challenge. The fear of change, of loss, of uncertainty. Jung said that excessive attachment is a form of resistance of the soul to its own growth. Therefore, many of these people are called at some point in their lives to let go of what seemed eternal. They lose something, someone, or even an identity that they thought immutable. And this moment, as difficult as it may be, is always an invitation to trust not only in what is under your feet, but also in what lives inside. It is at this point that the soul of May transforms. When he understands that true stability does not come from the outside, but from the inner connection. When you realize that you don't have to control everything, just cultivate what matters. From there, a new strength emerges, to be firm without being rigid, to be constant without being inflexible. These people usually have a special connection with the senses. They love the touch, the smell, the taste, the soothing sounds. Beauty nourishes them. And this is not vanity, it is the language of the soul. For Jung, the soul speaks through images, music, nature, symbols. And those born in May usually understand this language intuitively. Therefore, many of these souls are artists of life. Even if they don't paint, write, or act, they have their own way of beautifying the world. They take care of what they love with a rare dedication. They make the simple something sacred, and that, in itself, is a spiritual gift. The call of these souls is that of sustenance. They are the ones who stay when everyone goes, that they build when everyone gives up, that remind the world that nothing flourishes without care, and that love is not just a feeling, it is a daily presence. But to fully live this mission, courage is also needed. The courage to give up what no longer serves. To say no. To face the fear of instability and realize that change can also be an act of love. Jung said that the greatest enemy of the soul is conformism. And these people need to watch themselves, because comfort can sometimes turn into prison. When the soul of May finds this balance, between stability and freedom, between root and sky, it blossoms. He becomes an example of integrity, peace, calm strength. You don't need to shout to be heard. His presence already transforms. If you were born in May, you may have felt that your life requires patience. Maybe you feel that everything you achieve comes gradually, after a lot of effort. But no, it is because you came to build what remains. Not that which shines for an instant, but that which sustains a life. And that, deep down, is one of the greatest missions a soul can have. Throughout these months, we have seen that time is not just a succession of days. It carries symbols, rhythms, subtle truths. And if Carl Jung were here, he might say, there is no chance at birth. The soul chooses, and the time of choice reveals what it has come to awaken. January brought quiet leadership. February, originality that defies the ordinary. March, the sensitivity that heals. April, the flame of courage. May, the firmness that sustains. Every month is a window, an invitation, a revelation. And perhaps now you are beginning to understand what your soul has always known, that the month you were born is not just a date. It's a code, a key, a sign that you came into the world at the exact moment your essence was ready. Nothing is by chance, and neither are you.